I did number them. I've been counting, but that's fun. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Evelyn and I live in a place with seasons now. So I'm from Oklahoma, and being as far down the globe as we are, we don't really get really distinct seasons. There's like maybe a week where there's like fall colors, but it's not like a gradual progression. It's just like boom, orange trees, boom, dead trees. Like that's it. But up here in Iowa, it's actually like fall weather, and like the trees are slowly, they were all green and now they're all kind of yellow, and some of them are turning a little bit orange. Like the anticipation is killing me, but I know it's gonna be so freaking pretty when it happens. I'm so ready. Like really ready. So since I'm trying to cling on to that fall mood and wait out the leaves, I figured what better time to recommend some fall-ish books for you guys. So I actually have 12 recommendations for you guys, which is a lot of recommendations. I started writing this list and then I couldn't stop. So yeah. Book number 1 is The Babysitter's Coven by Katie H. Williams. So this book released either early this month or late last month, but it is kind of the perfect fall Halloween type book. It's set right around there. It follows Esme Pearl. She and her best friend are babysitters. They've had this like Babysitters Club since middle school. They're now high schoolers. Her life is kind of starting to be really strange ever since this girl named Cassandra showed up at her school. She started developing potentially strange telekinesis powers. And Cassandra has strange pyrokinesis powers. The girls have to work together to kind of figure out where the heck these powers come from, and they kind of stumble upon this whole secret society that their mothers were both a part of called the Sitters. They are protectors of the world. They're protecting humanity from things that want to enter from this other like darker place. And when one of Esme's babysitting charges gets kidnapped by somebody from that dark place, the two girls have to work together to save her. Esme's actually a super relatable narrator because unlike Cassandra, she is just generally freaked out by the situations that they're in, but she kind of has to keep it together to save her kiddo that she's supposed to be watching. Book number 2 is actually just the entire Diviners series by Libba Bray, the first book being The Diviners. This series focuses around the misadventures of one Evie O'Neill. She is from Zenith, Ohio. She is visiting her uncle in New York. He's in charge of this museum of creepy crawlies, as Evie likes to put it. It's this museum of the occult, and when there's this murder that seems as if it might be connected to occultish things, her Uncle Will gets called in, and Evie goes with him. She kind of stumbles into this whole world where ghosts are real and all of this like American folk magic stuff is true. Evie herself has the ability to read objects. If she holds an object in her hands, she can tell you where it came from and things about the person who owns it. And throughout the series you meet other diviners like Evie. Each character has their own kind of like special interesting power, and somehow they are all connected. I love every single character on their little team. It's a very diverse series. This is historical fantasy set in the 1920s. I feel like I didn't say that. It is so incredibly well researched. There's a lot of commentary on the darker side of the 20s, because you always hear about the Roaring 20s parties, everybody was having a grand old time, but this touches really on a lot of the xenophobia, racism, sexism, homophobia, just general dislike of the other people. This series does deal a lot with ghosts and creepy crawly things, but it's not spooky enough that it like gives me nightmares, and I am the kind of person who got nightmares from watching the movie Monster House as a child. So if you're pushing this series aside because you think it's gonna be too scary for you, I guarantee you it's not as bad as you think it is. Book number 3, The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. This is another book that has some spooky vibes to it, but like in a really real way. I don't know, it's very good. It makes you think. So this book is set in a very small town called Four Paths, New York. The main character, Violet Saunders, is moving there. Her mother is originally from there. They're moving back into their family home. And it turns out that Violet is a member of one of the 4 founding families. And she meets Justin and May Hawthorne, Isaac Sullivan, and Harper Carlyle, who are all children of the other 3 founding families. And it turns out that there's some sinister kind of magical stuff happening in Four Paths. There's a dark force that is stealing people away, and it is up to the families to keep it at bay. And Violet is trying to uncover these powers that she's supposed to have inherited, but she doesn't quite understand how they work, and so she has to turn to these other kids to help her figure that out. Moving on to number 4, The Gilded Walls by Roshani Chokshi. Heist novel, heist novel, heist novel. This is yet another historical fantasy. This time it's set in Paris during the Gilded Era. The main character, Severin, is a hotelier. He runs a hotel. And also an elite group of specialized human beings who steal magical artifacts from time to time. So in this universe there is magic, and there are these magical houses that kind of control the magic, and Severin thinks that he should have been named the head of one of these houses, but he was wrongfully stripped of his title. So when the head of another one of these houses comes to him and says, hey, I will help you get your title back, you just have to help me steal this artifact, Severin's like, let's go, let's do it. Once again, a super diverse cast of characters, and literally every single one of the characters had some sort of aspect of their identity that was really easy for me to relate to. So I like fell for every single one of them like really hard. They're so good. I typically enjoy high fantasy books over like all other things, but apparently during the fall I like reading historical fantasy because this is the second one on this list. And again, this touches on the darker side of an era that is typically romanticized in our culture, the Gilded Age. Each of these characters experiences some kind of persecution for being who they are, and those themes are explored throughout. It's nice. We love thoughtful fantasy. Number 5, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. So when I think of fall, I think of 2 things. I think of trees, and I think of like back to school season. And The Raven Boys has prep school vibes and tree vibes. So yeah, checking both those boxes. Again, this was a series that I thought was gonna be too spooky for me, but it's actually like not super spooky. I mean, there are like spooky elements. You've got nature magic and dead kings and psychics and all that jazz, but it's not like uncomfortably spooky. It's like just a little bit of like a chill, like ooh, but like in a good way. I mean, I feel like you guys all know what The Raven Boys is about, but basically the main character's name is Blue Sargent. She is from this family of psychics, and she's been told that if she kisses her true love, he will die. So she just avoids boys and love and all that kind of stuff. But then she suddenly finds herself running wild with this group of 4 boys, Adam, Noah, Gansey, and Ronan, and they are on this quest to find this dead Welsh king, and she ends up getting involved. She's gonna help them, and it's wonderful. Number 6, The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. I know everybody on BookTube really talks about The Cruel Prince and whatever else. I was interested in them, but then they got really, really hyped, and I stopped being interested in them. So I cannot speak to The Cruel Prince, but I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that the fairy love interest in this book doesn't have a tail, so I feel like we're already a step above. This is pretty standard Holly Black stuff. The main characters, Hazel and Ben, they are siblings. They live in this town where fairy magic is just kind of, it's a thing, and there happens to be a fairy in a glass coffin that just chills in the forest. It's kind of a tourist attraction. Kids go into this clearing and like throw parties. And the fairy never wakes up. And when they were little, they used to like play games where they would like pretend that the fairy did wake up, and they would have adventures. And then now they are teenagers, and one day the fairy does wake up, and shit goes down. This is a standalone, which is nice because there's not a lot of YA standalones out there, and sometimes you just want to read one book and be done with it. If you are a fan of The Cruel Prince, or maybe you're just intimidated by The Cruel Prince but you still want to try Holly Black, you should go for The Darkest Part of the Forest, because I really enjoyed it. Number 7, Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, a spooky mystery. This is set at Ellingham Academy, which is this very famous school built by this very famous man named Robert Ellingham. It's supposed to be a conservatory for kids who are just like really, really smart. Back in the 30s, when it first opened, there was a murder that took place there that has never been solved. Our main character, Stevie Bell, is attending Ellingham Academy, and nowadays the kids who go there are like very specialized. They're like kids who are really good at one thing, and Stevie is really good at true crime. And her ultimate goal is to solve this cold case from the 30s that took place at this school. While you're reading Stevie's story, you're also getting like accounts of what actually happened back in the 30s when this murder takes place, and then also in present day, while Stevie is trying to investigate this old murder, a new possible murder happens at the academy. So there's a lot of questions that are being asked of you, and this is one of the books that really got me back into wanting to read mysteries because it's just so intriguing and like well written. Number 8, Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. 3 words, badass lady pirates. Like, that's it. That's all you really need to know, but I'll tell you more. So the main character, her name is Alosa. She is, as the title suggests, the daughter of the Pirate King. She's spent her entire life trying to prove to her father that she is worthy of becoming his heir, even though she is a girl, and she volunteers herself for this mission. She's going to sneak onto an enemy ship, pretend to be their captive, and then find this piece of a map that her father needs that's going to lead them to this siren treasure. It's a fun time. While she's on this ship, she is pretending like she's in captivity, but she actually is frequently escaping her cell and searching the ship and plotting and trying to find this map. And the main obstacle in her way is the first mate. His name is Ryden. He is unfairly attractive. They don't get along very well, but there's a little bit of enemies to lovers that happens throughout the course of the book. Also, she's part siren, so there's some really interesting like world building and magic that kind of happens. It's like really straightforward, like standard pirate stuff, but it didn't feel like something I'd read before, probably because the main character is a girl, and so like that turns the idea on its head a little bit, which Trisha Levenseller is really good at doing. Number 9, My Plain Jane by the Lady Janies. This is, of course, a retelling of my least favorite classic novel of all time, Jane Eyre, but it turns out if you add ghosts to Jane Eyre, not only does it start making more sense, it also becomes really funny. Like, super funny. Like, I love the Lady Janies. Everything they do is amazing. So this is the actual story behind the novel Jane Eyre. Our 3 main characters are Jane Eyre herself, Charlotte Bronte herself, and then a ghost hunter named Alexander Blackwood. The 3 of them get wrapped up in this huge conspiracy to take over England using ghosts. It's great. I was so afraid after I read My Lady Jane and I found out that they were coming out with another book. I was like, yes, please give it to me. And then I learned that it was a Jane Eyre retelling and I was like, no, I'm so afraid. What if I don't like this? But then I ended up loving it. So, like, I will be a ride or die Lady Janies fan for until the end of time, because they managed to do the impossible. They managed to get me to like some aspect of Jane Eyre. Number 10, A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. Apparently, fall is the time in which I like reimaginings of classic novels, because this is, of course, a reimagining of the Sherlock Holmes stories, and the main characters are the great-grandchildren of Holmes and Watson, Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson. They end up going to the same, you guessed it, boarding school and having to solve a copycat murder that is taken straight out of the pages of one of the Holmes books. I just love these characters so much. I just was reading an article about the, what's it called? It's like a theory about character relationships, and Charlotte and Jamie fit into it so well. Yes, okay. So I was just reading about the dynamic, and basically it's kind of a way to categorize characters and relationships that's not super heteronormative. And so one character is the sweater boy, and then the other character is the absolute nightmare. And basically, Jamie and Charlotte are they fit that really well. Jamie being the sweater boy and Charlotte being the absolute nightmare. But then sometimes they get really close to like switching, just because like their dynamic is so like codependent and like terrible at the same time, but like wonderful. Yeah, that's some interesting, that's a take. Anyway, if you really like retellings, or if you tried to read the Holmes books and were like, I can't, this is too old and stuffy and boring for me, maybe you should check these out, because it's definitely the same wonderful mystery, but in a modern era. Number 11, Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. I had to include some sort of Latinx rep, because until the 18th it is still technically Latinx Heritage Month. There was also LGBTQ rep in this. The main character, Alex Mortiz, is bisexual. This is book 1 in the Brooklyn Brujas. I believe it's going to be a trilogy. Each book focuses on one of the sisters, so the sequel, Bruja Born, focuses on her older sister, and there's zombies in that, so that's fun. But we're talking about Labyrinth Lost right now. So Alex is from a family of Brujas, and she is not a fan of being a Bruja herself. She wants to totally get rid of her powers. She's like very afraid of them. She decides that she's going to cast a spell that's going to get rid of her powers, and on her death day, she casts the spell, and instead of getting rid of her powers, she gets rid of her entire family. She accidentally sends them to Los Lagos, which is not a great place for them to be. So with the help of one of her close friends and a brujo that she doesn't know if she can totally trust, she goes into Los Lagos to rescue her family. This series has amazing world building. There's urban fantasy elements and portal fantasy elements, which is just like, wow, gorgeous. And then it's built on even more in the sequel, which is amazing, without even having to pull back on the Los Lagos thing. It's really good. And the final book, book number 12, The Hearts We Sold by Emily Lloyd Jones. This follows a girl named Dee Moreno who has escaped an abusive home situation by getting into this private school, but her money is about to run out. She's losing her scholarship, and she's very desperate not to have to go back to her home, so she makes a deal with a demon. In this world, when people make a deal with a demon, the demon takes part of their actual body from them. So usually it's limbs, arms, legs, but this particular demon that she meets deals in hearts. She gives away her heart in order to get the money to pay for school, but because this demon has her heart, she now owes the demon assistance in some fun Portal-ish shenanigans, and so she ends up meeting the other people who've given their hearts to this demon, including a boy who she starts to fall for. But the question is raised, how can you be in love with somebody when neither one of your hearts belongs to you? Emily Lloyd Jones just came out with the Bone Houses, which I got in the November Owl Crate, and fingers crossed I can get to it by the end of October, because it seems like the perfect October read. Just Emily Lloyd Jones seems to do that kind of spooky speculative really well, and so I'm really excited for that one as well. I just haven't read it yet, so I can't recommend it to you, but I will recommend The Hearts We Sold. That's a solid novel. Alright, so that is all that I have for you guys today. Comment down below what kind of books get you in the fall mood. Do you have a favorite book that you read every fall? I don't have a book that I read every fall, but I do have a book that I read every winter, which I will be discussing in a few months. If you like this video, please remember to click that subscribe button and leave a really big thumbs up so that I know that you liked it. With that being said, my name is Evelyn. I make new videos every magical Monday, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.